Okay, buckle up. I'm going to talk through my career journey as an entrepreneur over the last 17 years. I started my first business when I was 16, selling on eBay. I come from a very normal working class background, and I was very much raised under the ethos I think lots of people are, which is if you want something, you go out, you work for it, you make your own money, off you go. I got my first job working when I was 13, which I think is like the legal limit when you can start working. And I was washing dishes in a local cafe. And then when I was 16, I got my first job in retail. And at the same time, I was selling things on eBay. So this was 2005, 2006. Most high street retailers didn't have an e-commerce offering that shipped abroad. So what I did, this was in the kind of heyday of British high street retail, is I would buy things from H&M, from Topshop, really popular collections like some of you may remember Topshop by Kate Moss that completely sold out, and we could buy these things on the high street. And I saved as much money as I possibly could from my Saturday job, and I would use that money to buy stock from retailers on the high street, and I would sell them on eBay to people abroad for double or triple. And this was great. I made a lot of money doing that. For a teenager, it paid for me to have all of the great things that you want when you're a teenager: GHD hair straighteners, holidays with your friends. It meant I could buy my lunches out when I was at school. I could buy the clothes that I wanted. It was great. So I had my kind of eBay side hustle for a really long time. And then in 2008, I went to university. I have got a Master's of Arts degree in Scotland, so an MA in Sustainable Development. I went to the University of St Andrews, and I am very different in terms of background to the normal the stereotype of people that goes to St Andrews. And I knew that going in. I knew I would have to pay everything myself. I had to pay all of my own rent, and I took out a student loan to cover some of my living costs. When I was there, I consistently needed to make additional money. So I worked in a bar, and I also kept up with everything that I was doing on eBay. And I started a cleaning business with my then housemate, and we would go around cleaning student houses. I graduated in 2012, and I think because I've been on eBay for nearly 8 years at this point, buying and selling things online, when I graduated, I was like, I don't really want to get a stereotypical graduate job, because I am quite used to at this point having quite a lot of autonomy over my finances and how much money I can make. So I'm just going to sack that off, and I'm just going to start my own business. So because I've been on eBay, I thought, how hard can having your own e-commerce site be? This is going to be really easy. And I took kind of what I've been doing on eBay, selling retail. I kind of felt like I had an eye for what people would buy and what consumer trends were, but also combining that with my degree in sustainable development. And I started an online marketplace for sustainable fashion brands. And to begin with, I had a lot of really early initial success. I had a lot of press, and I managed to raise investment really easily. I sat next to someone at a networking dinner, and within a week I had £100,000 in angel investment, and I was like, this is amazing. And I had all of this proverbial smoke blown up behind me, and I thought I was the shit. And I was still really young, so I was 22, 21, 22. And I'd had all of this success, and because I'd raised investment really easily, I thought that would definitely happen to me when I needed to raise more money. I was very naive about the numbers in that business and how to spend money properly. I bought some really stupid stuff. I had a PR agency on retainer for like stupid money, like I think it was about £3,000 a month. I was focusing on all of the wrong things. And I think because I was making top line revenue, and all of my friends were like, oh my gosh, Helena's got this business and it's amazing and la la la, and I had all this press, it was great. But the business itself was, one, I think a bit early for the market. 2012, sustainability and making consumer choices based on sustainability credentials isn't what it is today. So I think the business was a bit early, and also like I was just stupid. Okay. So unfortunately, it got to a position where I couldn't raise money for that business. The next round of investment, I then chose to take out personal debt to repay the investor that had given me the £100,000, because I was like, this business isn't going to work and I can't bear to lose this person's money. and I lost my hair from stress-related alopecia. And as you can see, I have got long hair, you guys, and I lost pretty much all of the hair on the crown of my head. So I had hair at the front and hair like kind of at the back, but this top bit was missing. So I spent like a year and a half, longer than that, having to wear my hair up all of the time because I had lost my hair. So that business crashed and burned and was my first real experience of pretty catastrophic failure. And the next 18 months I spent learning about everything that I had done wrong, and I would literally do anything legal that would pay me money. So I did temping jobs, I worked in bars, and I also did a couple of in-house roles working for e-commerce brands. I did some marketing, and I also helped these businesses with fundraising because I had been through my own experience of fundraising, and it was very much in the vein of like, how can I help these people not do what I had done in terms of burning through all of this cash and helping them to raise investments, which it was a very raw and real experience that I had just been through. So I worked with those brands, and on the side at the same time, I was doing freelance work, working with other startups on raising investment, because by this point, I had developed a really big network of investors, of people in the UK who were looking for interesting investment opportunities. And because I'd had a ton of conversations during my e-commerce business, I had built myself a really, really good network because I didn't go to them asking for money. I went to them asking to learn. And you could do that in like 2013, 2014. It was a very different investment landscape to the one that we've got today. So I was very fortunate. I built myself from the ground up a very strong network. I didn't have kind of any family connections or this little black book that was sort of handed to me. I went out and really nurtured that network, and that freelance on the side kind of consultancy grew and grew and grew when I had more and more people being introduced to me. And to start with, I wasn't even charging people to introduce them to investors. I was just making really good connections. And it was at the point where I introduced someone to an investor and they invested £1 million in that business that my then boyfriend, now husband, said to me, like, this is a full-on business. And that was when myself and my husband set up our consultancy business, which we ran for 8 years, supporting early stage businesses with their first initial 3 to 4 rounds of investment. And we would do that by introducing them to both individual high net worth angel investors, but also venture capital funds. Then in 2020, my husband set up our broadband company. He runs the entirety of that business. I sit on the board and I support with financing and also with strategy. There must have been something in the air at this point, because then in 2021, we started our Angel Syndicate, where we were bringing together groups of high net worth individuals to invest in early stage technology companies. 2023 was another big year where myself and my business partner Alex set up our first venture capital fund. This is slightly different to the Angel Syndicate in the sense that we will raise money from LP, large institutional investors, and then we will make the investment decisions ourselves. And that is an extremely long process to go through setting up a venture capital fund, which is probably a story for another day. At the end of 2022, start of 2023, I also decided to see what I could do with making some additional money online, because I had seen all these videos about how easy it was to make additional passive income. And as a serial entrepreneur and as an investor, in all honesty, I was curious, like, am I missing something here? Are people genuinely making really good money online? And since in the last 18 months, I've made over £150,000 predominantly passively on all online, I would say that there is definitely a huge opportunity for making yourself some additional money alongside your 9 to 5. Of course, no entrepreneurial journey is smooth sailing, and unfortunately last year we had to put our consultancy business into liquidation because the after effects of COVID and the just terrible economic climate finally caught up with us. And in all honesty, that's one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of income diversification, of ensuring that you have many horses running in the race so that you can financially cope when things don't go to plan. It's been a wild ride, and to be honest, who knows what the next 17 years will bring?